Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here at Totem Pole Nation. We are live. Let me send you to the host, big man, Kenny Thomason. What's up, big man?
Not much, man. What's going on? Tonight we got special guest Kevin Hardy on with us. I'm excited to talk a little ball and life with him.
Oh, man, without a doubt, 1996 Butkus Award winner, the number 2 pick behind who? Throw me the damn ball, Keyshawn Johnson, man. What a great time, man. Coach, yeah, let us know what's going on currently. I guess you're at a track meet right now, man. Let's talk about the boys and what all you got going on at the moment, if you could.
I am at a track meet. I have two sons. I got one that's at UConn, Langston. He's a sophomore at UConn, and then I got a one that's a junior in high school, which is I'm at his track meet. I'm at his track meet right now, but he's running track, just trying to get himself ready for the season in the fall. He's committed to Wake Forest, so he just did that. So, yeah, so we're excited about that, and just trying to help them along with their careers.
Oh, man, without a doubt, it's important, I think, if you're not doing football all year round, it's always good to dabble in another sport, and it seems like the acorn don't fall far from the tree, right? You might have dabbled in a little basketball. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the thing about it is I grew up in Evansville, Indiana, up in the Midwest, and up there, and it seemed like back in those days, I mean, playing multiple sports was a thing. Everybody did. A lot of guys did. I played basketball, I ran track, and of course played football. And since I've been down here in Jacksonville, the thing that I've noticed with a lot of athletes, a lot of high school athletes, is kids nowadays, especially down here, become one sport focused, and I think that's such a bad thing, because I think that playing multiple sports only helps your athleticism, across the lines. And so I've encouraged my sons to play multiple sports, even though they didn't always do it. They played baseball and football, and I don't count baseball as a real sport when it comes to
Oh, I love that.
but at least I got him running track now, and I think that it'll help him with his football career.
Absolutely. Now, does he play that same position as you did coming up, or what position is he being recruited for?
Yeah, he's playing. The position, like nowadays they call it edge, and so in my day we just called it outside linebacker, or a guy that was rushing the passer. But he plays the edge, and it's kind of a similar position than what I played when I was at Illinois. We called it a drop linebacker, and so it was a guy that could drop into coverage, but at the same time, on third down he could rush the passer. And so thinking back in my days, that's what I kind of thrived in that position. Being able to rush the passer, but at the same time being able to drop and play in the coverage. And that's the same things that he's playing right now, and that's what Wake Forest recruited him as.
Man, I want to know this. I want to know this trivia. How many guys that went to the NFL as a rookie, their first game had a pick and a sack in their first NFL game?
You want to hear something interesting?
That's what I want to hear.
This year, I took my youngest son. I took Cam and I. We went up to the Jaguars opening game against the Washington Commanders, and we drafted a guy, Trayvon Walker, and drafted him #1 overall, and he plays like a hybrid, an end, an outside back, a rush. They line him up in a lot of different places. Well, first game of the season against Washington, he gets a pick and an interception and a sack. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this has got to be, I held that record in Jacksonville for a while, and I was the second pick. He's the #1 pick opening day, and he gets a pick and a sack, and so now he won up to me. But I was glad to see it.
Wow, that's some good company to be in right there, man. Without a doubt, without a doubt.
So, Kev, talk us a little bit about what's going on with Langston up at UConn and Cam's whole recruiting process.
Well, It's funny, Kenny. Like the recruiting process has changed a lot since back when I was going through it. And the reason why I say that is nowadays, it's like athletes got to be so much more proactive, and with social media, it's a lot easier for coaches to kind of see players and find players. But at the same time, I think it's kind of a lazy way to do things. Coaches don't get out as much as they used to. And we I kind of learned that on the fly, because when Langston was going through the recruiting process, I didn't really, I wasn't used to it. And so I was kind of relearning it in a sense. And so he got a number of offers. I can't remember. I think he got 12 to 13 offers. And he ended up picking UConn, and we had an interesting relationship with UConn. Well, with the head coach at the time, a guy by the name of Randy Etzel. I played for Randy my first year in Jacksonville, and him and his family, they make Jacksonville their home. So we had a relationship with him, and so when he was recruiting Langston, like we decided to to go up there and to go ahead and commit and go to UConn. So he was up there, and unfortunately, he tore his ACL last year. And in the football world, the ACLs take a long time to heal. But he's been going through that process, just trying to rehab it and get that back together. And so he hasn't had a chance to actually play in a game on defense. He did get a chance to play a little bit of special teams before when he came back from his injury. But he's been working really hard this offseason, and we look forward to him getting on the field next year and hopefully contributing to that program. Oh, and then you also asked me about Camden. Now, the second time around, with Camden, I've been a little bit more proactive because I know how it works, and so we attended a lot of different camps. We we did the Rivals camps, we did the Under Armour camps, we did the school camps. And so throughout all that process, he was really getting noticed on top of his play on the field when he was, putting his huddle tape out. So he, it was a little different in the Langston situation because he was out there a little more. And Wake Forest, we had gone up to his camp, and they got a chance to see him firsthand. And as soon as the camp was over, Coach Coughlin, he brought us in the office. He offered him right on the spot. And
wow.
I was really proud of that because that was a testament to how hard he's worked and how well he performed at the camp. And the coaches got a chance to see that live and in person, and to get an offer right there on the spot. I was really proud of him for that. For that situation.
Kudos to you for sure. That's something else. When you get to see your favorite guy. You get that love, and you went through the whole process, and it's got to give you kind of butterflies because you're kind of going through it again with the guys. And I'm sure the UConn coach, they thought they got one big fish, maybe they'd reel in another one, but that's awesome. You're just gonna have to put some flyer miles on this off season, and leave the beautiful confines of Jacksonville to go to the tundra, right? It's got to be a little chilly up there at UConn, I bet.
Yeah, but trust me, I'm happy to do it. There's nothing more than playing gives you a lot of fulfillment and joy. Throughout my career, I had a lot of great moments, but I tell you, I coached both of the boys in high school, and there's no better feeling than watching them have success on the football field. The first time that each of them got a sack, it felt better than any sack that I ever got throughout my career. And I just enjoy being dad. I enjoy being coach, and now I enjoy having an opportunity to watch them continue to play and grow in their careers.
Oh, without a doubt. And with that being said, we kind of like to scroll back if possible, tell us about you and when you first originally started, playing sports, was it football love at first sight? Did you play a little, I believe you weren't too bad at basketball from rumor has it.
Yeah. I've always been into sports. When I was little, we lived outside of Chicago, And, some of my fondest memories was my dad taking me to White Sox games, Cubs games. Back then, the USFL, the Chicago Blitz. I don't know if anybody out there remembers them.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, the Bears, the Bulls. I mean, we used to go to all different types.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that's, that really got me going. But, playing football, I first started playing flag. And I wanted to play tackle so bad, but in the community that we lived, they didn't offer tackle. So I played flag football my first, 3 years. And I think that was from 7, 8, 9 or what, I can't remember the age. But it wasn't until we moved to Indiana that I played tackle for the first time. And, only thing I wanted to do was be like Walter Payton. That was the guy that
Sweetness.
Yeah, sweetness. That was my hero. And so football, kind of became that first love. But along with that, I played basketball. Obviously in Indiana's known as a basketball state. Having a chance to play with some guys that played in the NBA. I'll tell you another interesting thing, and I'm not bragging on myself, but you look at the high school that I went to, and over the course of a 3 or 4 year period, you had myself, who ended up being a first round NFL pick, and we had 2 first round NBA draft choices, and another guy who went on to
coach.
He played at Southern Illinois, and now he coached there. He's a head coach, and now he's on the Northwestern staff.
Wow.
But in the course of about 3 or 4 years, I mean, we had some really, really good talent around there. And I really think that having those guys around helped me, become a better player myself as well.
Man, without a doubt, Walter McCarthy, Chris Lowry, Calbert Chaney. I mean, those guys. And that was the thing, Coach, back then, man. I loved the movie Hoosiers. How many times have you seen that movie, and did that have any influence for you?
Coach, there were some times where we'd have practice, and we had managers, because our head coach was a guy named Gerald Vanderveer, and he loved Bobby Knight. Everything he did was like Bobby Knight. And so down to how our practices were scripted and how we wore uniforms and things that we did. But the reason why I said it is because we had these student managers, and each day the student managers would come in the locker room and they would let us know what college coaches were out there. Now, of course, they were out there to see Calbert Chaney, but all of us were, we knew we had the opportunity to practice in front of, big time coaches. And I remember, one day that, the guys came in there and they said, we had Bobby Knight, Rick Pitino, and Gene Cady in the building for our practice at one time. And man, each one of us, man, we laced those shoes up. I mean, that was the hardest practice that we ever had, because everybody was trying to perform. But that was just another day in the life, at high school with all that talent that we had around there.
Yeah, without a doubt. I was blessed enough around 2012 to be in St. Petersburg, and I just went to the nearest high school. I had called the coach, and he said, "Well, come on in." And he was actually interning for the Jacksonville Jaguars, coached by the name of Coach Moore.
Okay.
Right, and he's now a scout with the NFL, Corey Moore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he scouts for them, and he's still head coach at Lakewood. But he was going to you guys pretty much doing some internship. He said, "Look, go in the weight room, check it out. If you're here when I get back, we'll keep you around if you want." And that's exactly what I did. I went in there, and like you said, the talent level. Me being a Virginia guy, I'm used to where your best players are obviously playing offense and defense.
Right.
But down in Florida, man, it's a whole different ball game, man. It's too hot for guys to play both sides of the ball, so you can really master your craft. But the time period that I was there, the Griffin twins, Shaquem and Shaquille Griffin, who had a standout career at Central Florida. Shaquem was the player of the year, defensive player of the year.
Right.
Both of those guys end up at Seattle. Mm-hmm. We had a wide receiver, Rodney Harris, who he ended up Rodney Adams, I'm sorry, he ended up getting a shot with Jacksonville. I'm sorry. He got a shot with the Colts and the Bears for a while. He's out of the league currently, but a guy that just won the Super Bowl, Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Okay. Yeah.
He is a Lakewood alumni, and we had an awesome offensive lineman that I've shared a lot of information with Kenny by the name of Isaiah Wynn. He's starting up there in New England. And just to see all those guys at one time. And we also have one guy that's currently in mixed martial arts, a guy by the name of the Cyborg, A.D. Paul Moore. He's doing mixed martial arts, and he's 5-0, pretty much 5 knockouts. And he's a guy that we had. He was our tight end. He was a hybrid, style tight end. But man, seeing him doing his mixed martial arts, man, he would have been a great in your role, Kevin, because man, I think as a good defensive player, especially when you rush, you're rushing the quarterback, man, you really need to have some violent hands and some violent moves to get to that quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the game has evolved. You look at some of these moves that these guys are doing today. I mean, that stuff. I mean, it wasn't even. I'd never seen some of the stuff. I mean, I tell you, like one of my favorites is the cross chop. There's a guy used to be here in Jacksonville in Dockway. He was so good at that move, and we've had so many kids like emulating that and trying to do it that it's become both of my sons' favorite move. But You're right. Nowadays, I mean, it's so specific on different moves that guys do and so much specialized training. I mean, hell, we go to Atlanta, like we've been to Tampa, we went all the way to Dallas, working out with guys with these specialized trainers, that are good. And people ask me all the time, they say, man, you're a second round, the second pick in the draft and you played, in the NFL 9 years, and you taking your guys to, I'm taking the kids to other specialists, but I definitely do because, like I said, the game has evolved from the time that I was playing. And, like I said, I'm glad to see it. And we just try to keep up with the times.
Hey, Coach, if you don't mind, can you plug some of those guys? I know Chuck Smith, former Atlanta Falcon, he's one that runs a camp like that. Are there other guys you can plug? So, our young defensive linemen that are hungry and want to go to good places, is there anybody you can refer them to?
Well, Chuck, ironically, like you said, Chuck Smith is in Atlanta, but his partner, Dez, and I can't remember his last name, but Dez is a guy that really works a lot with the high schoolers. Chuck does a lot. He still works with, but he works a lot with more of the college guys and some of the pro guys. But his partner Dez is really, really good. And like I said, they're out of Atlanta. Another guy, just outside of Atlanta, Corey Beck. He's a D-line coach at a high school up there. It's not Carrollton. I can't think of the name. But we've gone to him. He works with the Under Armour camp along with Coach Nate, I think it's Nate O'Neill, the feet, hat, and hands, I think is his Instagram. He's and he's the guy that we've worked with, through the Under Armour camps, and we've gone to Atlanta to work out with him as well. Let's see, the guy that we went to work out with in Dallas, you put me on the spot because I can't remember everybody's names. I know his Instagram is I think it's Teps Hunters, TP. I can't really remember, like the exact name, but we went out there and had trained with him, and again, that was through an Under Armour camp. But those trainings have really, really helped, and we still work on all the things that we take from each of those guys.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. Now looking back, obviously, growing up, you probably didn't have those sorts of camps and things that you went to. How did you perfect your craft when you were in high school, other than playing other sports?
Well, we had camps, but they weren't the specialized camps like what you see today. And when I'm saying the specialized camps, you know how you got these 7-on-7 camps, you got these big camps, you got all these, like back when when I was going, I mean, we just had straight all sport. I mean, all position the football. And I remember I went to a camp in Louisville. Like I said, I was in Evansville, Indiana at the time. Went to a camp right outside of Louisville, and it was a school there by the name of Louisville Male that had a lot of great football players. And the thing about myself when I was a kid, no matter where I was at, I always wanted to compete. And my dad had heard about this camp, and he took me up there, and I didn't care who was there. I just wanted to compete. And so I'm seeing guys, my same age, and I'm trying to to keep up or to do better than what they were doing. And that's how I've always been, And I also had gone to the Illinois football camp, ironically, and it was kind of a similar situation to what I was telling you earlier about my son Camden. I go to the Illinois football camp. Now I had already been on their radar, but when they got a chance to see me live, I think it just solidified them, and that's why I'm a big proponent of these camps, because I really think that they can help develop players, and at the same time they can help you they can help you get seen and get out there on the radar of different coaches in different schools.
Absolutely, Kevin. And for those of y'all that don't know, at Totem Pole Nation, he was inducted into the Illinois Hall of Fame. No bigger award than that. And this is my favorite jersey right here of all time, and that was your number there. So I definitely love that. And I watched that, and the thing that it just hit me in the heart was the first person that you talked about and wanted to give credit to was your high school football coach. That just, to me, man, that meant everything, because, my high school offensive line coach is who helped me, be the man that I am today. So when I heard you talk about that, it was just super impressive. Tell me about him, and tell me, the influence that he gave you, and, what he meant to you, if you could.
Well, obviously there was a number of people that helped me, get to the levels that I got to. But Coach, his name is Mitch Marsh, and Coach Marsh was a guy that just I think he recognized my potential early, and he did everything he could to help me maximize that. And there's a ton of different stories, but one I'll tell you real quick was, I was a senior, and by the time I was a senior, I had already had gotten a few offers, and it was apparent that I was going to be going off to school. And I just remember, like we had a practice. It wasn't a good practice. And after practice, we had to run the gassers. So we're running the gassers, and he just kept having us run and run and run. And I just started dogging him out. And and Kenny, you know what I'm talking about. You go through that kind of stuff, man. You're out there, you're going through practice, and now you're running at the end, and you just can't see the purpose. So I started dogging him out, and he starts saying, he's telling me I got to pick it up. And I'm saying to myself, you ain't telling anybody else to pick it up. And I'm just, I keep dogging him out. And then finally he starts to say, he says to the team, he was like, we're not going to stop until Hardy gets up here, and this is that, that whole, like a movie script, right? Right. So I continue to do it until the guys start, then my teammates start, come on, Kev, man, come on. So of course now I got to pick it up, and I have to finish, and I got to finish first. So I go ahead and I do it. And then after that, Coach pulled me aside and he talked about the reasons for it. And I mean, there were so many life lessons, that he was talking to me in that moment about, just about leadership and perseverance and how important it was to just be a leader, because I had so many people looking up to me at that particular time. And there were so many instances that he would use to teach me life lessons. And so that's something, that I really, held on to. And there were so many moments that even when I left there, when I was at Illinois, that I would think about. I would think about moments that Coach Marsh had discussed, or like moments that we had that were fitting the situations, whether it was a problem, whether it was good or bad. I always had different things that I could refer to, And that continued on, through my professional career as well. And so that's why, I mentioned him, because he was such an inspirational, such a big part of my success that I'll forever be, indebted to him for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, the really good coaches, they demand the most from the best,
Yeah.
and that's when, when your best player is also your hardest worker, man, everything just kind of falls into line. What do you think, Big Ken?
It's the 10-80-10 rule. You got 10%, which is your leaders, 80%, which are the followers, and the 10% who don't care, who are dragging the team down. And
I like that.
You got to figure out how you're going to bring the 80%, and then along with the 80%, the 10% at the bottom, up and elevate them.
Wow,
I've never heard that, and that is right on point. That, I like that. I need to use that with our kids.
So now moving on to college ball, you obviously played at U of I and had a great career there. What can you say about your time there? And what they call them, the H brothers, the
H boys.
H boys. What's interesting about that is I was never supposed to be a part of the H. The H boys had started with Dana Howard and John Holisek. And, another, like during my introduction speech at the Hall of Fame, I had told this story because I think it was media day after my freshman year. And I had made, all freshman, all Big Ten freshman team. But Simeon had made the all Big Ten team along with Holisek and Dana. And so I just remember being at media day, and they had mentioned, hey, we need the H boys. We need the H boys to come over, something to get interviewed. So I walked over there, thinking that I was part of the H boys. And I get over there, and they told me that I didn't need to be over there, that it was only Dana and John that needed to be over there. I'm thinking, damn. I was like, my last name begins with H. I'm a starting linebacker as well. But again, that funny moment, it was I look back on it, it was funny, but it meant something to me because it really motivated me, because what I said to myself is what, I'm not good enough to be a part of this group. And so I worked my tail off, and part of that is because I wanted to be an H boy.
If you could, Kevin, man, tell us about some of your teammates that was on that defense, your defensive coaches that helped you along the way in college, if you could, because y'all were pretty loaded back then.
Well, first of all, Lou Tepper, when I went to school, when I got there, Lou Tepper was the defensive coordinator, and John Makovic was the head coach. And Makovic had taken a job to be the head coach at Texas. And so they had ended up promoting Lou Tepper to become the head coach, of the team. So the reason why that was significant is because he was a linebacker coach. He was a defensive-minded coach. And so obviously there was a lot of emphasis on defense. And so that's where it all started. I mean, he kind of he wrote a couple of books about linebacking, playing linebacker, and maybe I'll touch on that later. But going back to our defense, he was a defensive coach that really emphasized us being successful on defense. But you look at some of the players that we had, a guy named Tyrone Washington, he got some credit. I don't think he got enough credit because him and Antoine Patton were our safeties. And those two were two of the hardest hitting safeties, I think, in college football. And they were always overshadowed because people were always talking about the linebackers. But we had some pretty good safeties. We had some pretty good interior defensive linemen. I think about guys like Mickey Johnson, Chad Kofer, Like we had some guys that on the interior that were some really good players, but everybody was always overshadowed because of the linebackers. But those guys really helped us, had success that we had.
Absolutely, and with Simeon there coming off the edge, man. Ooh,
Well,
pick your poison with that defense, huh?
Well, I hadn't gotten to Simeon yet.
Okay.
I was just talking about the other guys, but
yeah.
As and this is going to sound a little funny, but as important as Coach Marsh was to me in high school, Simeon was a big part of me going on to become the player that I became and getting drafted where I got drafted. And the reason why I said it is because, first of all, I've never seen a guy work as hard as Simeon Rice, as far as weight room, running, just getting, just preparing himself. And Simeon was actually a year younger than me. He didn't redshirt. But the reason why that's significant is because we would have days where, he would want to go work out and he would ask me to go and I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm not going today. And he would, come on, Kev, you need to do this, you need to do that. So, he was the guy that really brought me along, and I was older than him. But even beyond that, after his junior year, Simeon was projected to be the number one pick in the country. He could have left that year. I think that was 95. He could have left and very well been the number one pick. And the number one pick that year was Kajana Carter out of Penn State.
Penn State, yeah.
But clearly, if Simeon comes out, I think that the Cincinnati Bengals select him. Well, he decides that he's going to come back to school. Now, people were talking about me as coming out my junior year as well, but more like a late first, early second, even maybe a third round pick. So it was a no-brainer for me to go ahead and come back to school. But for Simeon, there really wasn't a need. Well, he ends up coming back, and then so then now we become bookends. And as you can imagine, most teams were paying more attention to Simeon Rice than they were to me on the other side. So while he was catching the double teams, I was coming off the other side, single block, making sacks and making plays. And so without Simeon Rice, I don't think that Kevin Hardy, has the senior year that I had. And I definitely, probably don't get drafted in the same position I got drafted.
One spot ahead.
One spot ahead. Exactly. But I tell you, that draft day, us being in Madison Square Garden, both of us, back then the commissioner was Paul Tagliabue.
Right.
The Jets had the first pick. We had a conversation with the Jets the night before, so we knew that they were going to pick Keyshawn. Obviously, we didn't say anything. I say we. I'm talking about my agent, my dad. Mm-hmm. We knew that they were going to pick Keyshawn, and so our focus was on Jacksonville because they had the second pick. But Jacksonville didn't really tell us anything. It wasn't until draft day we started having conversations. But obviously, they go on to draft me, and then the Arizona Cardinals have the third pick. And I just remember, getting my name called, coming out, shaking the commissioner's hand, and when you get drafted, back then, you start to go right to the media tour. And Mike Tirico, I was sitting right there, right in front of the stage, doing ESPN radio with Mike Tirico when Tagliabue walks out and he says with the third pick, the Arizona Cardinals select Simeon Rice. And I yell into Mike and I'm thinking, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot I was live on radio. But you talk about a crazy feeling. I mean, to see, Simeon get drafted, and myself get drafted right there, second and third pick, NFL draft, just doesn't get any better than that.
Had to be a lot of happy tears shed that day, amongst the families and amongst the the Illinois alumni and everything. Is there any way, can we scroll back a little bit, because before you got drafted, there was a pretty big award that you had won against some pretty popular guys as well. I want to hear about that whole deal of winning the Butkus Award and, the guys you were with. I actually was checking out on YouTube, and there was a video, and you guys got the ears on and everything, man. It was so cool and just such a good throwback to watch it, man. Just So amazing. And you know, as a guy, I was in high school at the time, so I was watching you guys, and man, I was just loving every minute of it. So this is a special moment for me. But yeah, if you could, man, tell us about the you know, the whole thing of leading up and how that went, and you know, the guys that you were finalist with, if you could.
Well, one of the things, you know, that people don't know about, like we have a terrific sports information department at Illinois. And the reason why I said it is because those guys' job is to basically promote, you know, it's promote the guys. And so they help promote, and then I just got to take care of what I got to take care of on the field.
Yeah.
So, you know, every game, and whenever I had a good game, you know, I was constantly being interviewed, constantly, you know, name constantly being out there. And that really helped. And I had a bit of advantage over Zach Thomas and Ray Lewis because both of those guys were middle linebackers, and I was, you know, an outside backer, you know, and we were calling that position the drop linebacker. The reason why that's significant is because I had the ability to do a little bit of everything: rush the passer, play, you know, drop into coverage, and just, you know, make tackles. So my stats were a lot, you know, more advanced than what theirs were because I had what I ended up with, like 11 sacks, 12 sacks. I had 3 or 4 interceptions and a whole bunch of tackles. And obviously those guys were tackle heavy because they were, they were middle linebackers. And so that was a bit of an advantage for me. And, but at the same time, I mean, we got down there to Orlando and at the Butkus Award. And those guys do a great job of putting on a great weekend of guys, you know, hanging out. And so I got a chance to really hang out with Ray and Zach and get to know those guys. And you know, before the award was announced, you know, Dick was up there on the stage, and we're all sitting there nervous. And when he called my name, you know, I really couldn't believe it. I mean, because I didn't think that in a million years that I would, you know, win the Butkus Award, but you know, when it happened, it was one of the biggest moments of my life. But I will say this. I will say this. Now, if you look, both of those guys, because Zach just got picked for the Hall of Fame, so both of those guys became NFL Hall of Famers, and so I'll trade that Butkus Award for that NFL Hall of Fame.
Oh, Kevin, man, we love you, man. You balled out of control at Jacksonville, man. You had an amazing career, without a doubt. Yeah, that's so awesome. I mean, to be in the class with those guys, and that whole draft class was unbelievable. I believe there's 6 or 7 guys from that class that are Hall of Fame. So that was something else. Now that we, you know, we're now talking about Jacksonville and everything. Man, I mean, the talent level that was there, and they were an expansion team the first year, and then that's how they got to draft you. Is that correct?
No, so they weren't. You know, they were an expansion team in '95.
Okay.
The reason why they got to draft me because they had a bad year first year, so they had
right.
But so they were expansion along with Carolina in '95, and the first pick ever in the organization was Tony Baselli. He was the second pick in '95, and then in '96, I was the second pick in the second year of the franchise. And so, looking back, Tom Coughlin, the way that they decided to build this organization was they wanted to build through the draft with a lot of young talent. They had, you know, a few key veteran pieces, but they really drafted well. I look at our draft class, and again, I'm a little biased. I still think we have, you know, probably the best draft class in Jaguar history. Although that 2017 was a good draft when they drafted Jalen Ramsey and Dockway and a couple other guys, but the guy, the organization, they really drafted well in the early years, and that really contributed to the success that we had, being able to go to 2 AFC championships in the first 6 years of the franchise. Not quite over the top, but we were in the playoffs 4 or 5 straight years. So it was good days. You know, unfortunately we just couldn't quite get over the top, but it was some good times.
Name me some of the guys that were in your draft class. Name the guys that you kind of came in with, if you could, Kevin.
Right. So I was the first pick, and then Tony Brackens.
Oh, wow.
Tony Brackens was our first pick in the second round. Then we had a guy named Michael Cheever who had gotten hurt. He was a center. Had he not gotten hurt, I think a lot of people would still be talking about him. But he was a great center out of Georgia Tech. We got Aaron Beasley, the corner from West Virginia. A lot of people had him higher on the draft board. I'm surprised that he was still there at number 3. In the third round. Reggie Barlow, a receiver. He came from a small school, but Reggie B, he's actually head coach of the Washington Defenders right now. But
wow.
but him. We had a couple of guys that contributed a little bit early, but didn't really stick around. Chris Doring, the receiver out of Florida, he was in that draft class. But yeah, I mean, when you look, and again, I'm not just. I mean, when you look at the contributions that myself, Brackens, Beasley, Barlow, Cheever made, right off. I mean, all of us came in and played right from the beginning. It was pretty solid.
If I remember correctly, from what I've heard from my dad, you roomed with Brackens your first year?
Yeah.
Got any good stories about that?
Oh no, this is I can't share too much of that, but no, but Braggins and I, like we hit it off. I mean, we were so similar, and it really started with our families. I mean, our families are very similar, and a lot of things that we like. I mean, and we clicked right from the beginning, and it was, it was special because we were two, important parts of the defense. And so being able to room together and to, just build that relationship, I really think that, when players have a strong bond off the field, I think it really, really helps them on the field. And our whole class was like that. And, and again, it started with Braggins and I because we were so close. And so, I think that had a lot to do with our success.
Kevin, I want to ask you this. I kind of grew up in the Virginia area, and back then when I was watching, man, one of my favorite pass rushers was Reggie White. That Buddy Ryan coached Eagles team.
I'll say Bruce Smith, but go ahead.
And Bruce Smith. Oh, those were my top 2 guys without a doubt. And we had on Coach McNally earlier in the week, the offensive line coach, and he had actually played under Buddy Ryan. But what I wanted to know is, at that time when you guys were coming in young, you guys had one of my favorite pass rushers in Clyde Simmons, who was with that amazing Eagles defense, and we also had David Alexander, the center for the Eagles back then. We had him on and had a podcast with him, so he was telling us some good stories about Buddy. But yeah, I would love to hear some influence and what was Clyde Simmons like, because this was towards the tail end of his career, and just to have a guy that played with such amazing guys there in Philly. I mean, arguably one of the best defensive lines of all time. And then, to be able to have a little influence with him, man, that just had to be magical.
Just as we're sitting here and you're asking me stories, that's how we used to do Clyde. I mean, we would, and it'd be like, I mean, if we could start a campfire in the locker room, we would have. We would sit around and just listen to some of the things that he had to share. And, I tell you, we used to call him Grandpa because he, at that time, it was definitely on the tail of his career and he moved around so slow. But I tell you, he used his hands and he was so smart that you couldn't believe it. You would watch him play and he would be moving so slow, but it'd be like a technician. I mean, he would pop, knock hands down. And next thing you know, he's getting a sack. And you're thinking, how the hell is this guy still getting sacked? He's 80 years old. But but it just goes to show that like when you're that in tune with your craft and more than what the young guys know, you can be successful. And he used to give us little tidbits, little things that would help. I used to love listening to him tell stories about Seth Joyner and the intensity that those guys had and that defense. But that was a special thing, having the opportunity to play with a guy like Clyde Simmons. And, obviously he's an NFL legend in my eyes.
Without a doubt. And, you playing that position, obviously you had to work some pass moves, and that's another thing I love what the Jaguars did with having, such an amazing coach like Tom Coughlin. To me, it seems like, the way in my mind you build a team is you build it from the inside out, and drafting, a franchise, arguably one of the best tackles of all time. And then you guys the very next year, man, you want to win football games. You get the bigs up front. And yeah, tell us about some Tony Boselli, if you could.
Boselli, obviously, the huge, left tackle and the all-world player. But again, as important and as great a player that Boselli was, in our offense, on our team, Leon Searcy was more important than Boselli because Mark Brunell was a left-handed quarterback. And so the reason why obviously left tackles, get all the praise and command so much because most quarterbacks are right-handed and they got to protect that blind side. Well, Brunell was lefty, so he could see, if Boselli made a mistake, which was rare, but that's why Leon Searcy at right tackle was more important. And I tell you, man, Leon Searcy, I talked earlier about, when I was in Illinois and guys getting overshadowed, if Boselli's not on that team, Leon Searcy might be going to Hall of Fame. because he was such a good right tackle. And he was so important, to our football team. And I'll tell you a funny story about him. He had this punch, still the strongest punch that I ever felt ever in my life on the football field. But I remember, my rookie year, I go down and I do the pass rush, the one-on-ones, and Kenny, you know how it is. You get in these one-on-ones, and guys get excited to take on, get in that drill. And one of the moves that worked so well for me in college was the spin move. So I get down there and I'm all excited. I'm ready to break out this spin move, So I take.
It threw you out the club, huh? It threw you out the car.
Yeah.
We lost you for a second there, Kevin.
The field, and then spun inside, and he punched me so hard in the chest that I almost was like, "Coach, I'm going back down here with the linebackers."
I'm gonna go learn some coverage.
Looks like we lost Coach K there. But yeah, that's awesome. Obviously playing with guys like that made you a better player and obviously you want to be the best of the best, and what made you able to do that?
Yeah, it's a good old year. Those guys, when you get to that level, everybody's good. And you just gotta, you just gotta try to do what you can to keep up, And so I always, that's one thing. I never wanted to be the weak link. And so I worked hard just to always, be the best that I can be, so that I was never looked like, I didn't fit in.
Right. So obviously you're still a big fan of Duval, right? And so how often do you get to go to games?
I've been going more here lately, and that's mainly because my boys have gotten more into it. I tell you a funny thing. When I retired back in 2005, first thing I did was went out and bought season tickets. And at the time, my kids were little, and they didn't even. I bought all these season tickets and we're getting out there, and they didn't even like sitting out there. Years, and I thought to myself, why am I doing this? We didn't even go to the games. And so I shut that down. And then as they got older and they got more into it, then it started meaning a little more to them, and so we started going. But I tell you, this past year was a fun year because there's a lot of excitement around here with Trevor Lawrence and some of the success that these guys have had, and this year, going on that run at the end, and then making the playoffs, getting the home playoff game, and we went to both of those games. The first playoff game against the Chargers, and then I'm sorry, the last game of the year was against the Chargers. That put us in. No, here
Titans.
The Titans. The last game of the year was against the Titans. That put us in the playoffs, and then the first game, of course, was the Chargers and getting that victory. So, it's a lot of fun. And just like most NFL cities, when your team is doing well, the whole city does well, and so we love when the Jaguars are winning.
Thank you.
Man, that is awesome. I want to ask you guys, I need to, let's get to the good stuff right here. How do you guys know each other, and how long have you known each other? I've heard different stories.
Well, Kenny, obviously his dad, like when I was in college, this is how it started. When I was in college, my roommates and I, we rented a house on a street off of campus, and Kenny Senior, he lived across the street, and so we just kind of just a neighbor thing and kind of made friends. But then on top of that, he's this best mechanic in the world, right? And so,
amen.
And so each of us had car. I had this '84 Ford Escort that always had problems, and so he was always there to to help out. But even beyond that, like we just became good friends because it was more than just obviously like that aspect of it. We would hang out. He would come over. We'd drink beer and we'd have these different parties, and obviously, we'd always, invite him, and he would invite us over, and we just stayed in contact. And then when he started, growing his family, it was just the natural next step to, to be there and to see the kids grow. The funny thing is that I remember, I can't remember the first time, obviously like when Kenny was little, but then I remember, his dad calling me and told me that he was playing offensive lineman, and I thought, man, last time I said offensive lineman. How that little kid playing O-line? I'm like, and then as he talking, he's like, yeah, man, he's like 6'5", 6'6", and I'm like, no way. I'm like, wait a minute, little kitty, that and by the time I saw him when he was already playing football, I thought to myself, how the hell did this guy get that big? And I still don't know how. but yeah, we go way back, and I mean, these guys, he come down and he brought obviously, you guys met in Tampa, I believe, right? And they would come visit me here in Jacksonville, and come over to the house and hang out, and just anywhere we go, like we just always kept that bond, and it's a special thing.
No doubt about it. I mean, my brothers and sister and me, we all call him Uncle Kev for a reason. I mean, we grew up and he was always there for us. And, we, like he said, we'd go to the house in Jacksonville, see him. My dad likes to tell a story about, I think, right after he got drafted, I was young. And the first time I was there, he had like a pop machine in his house. And I kept on hitting the buttons.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that's right. I remember that. You guys walk in and say, hey, that's a real, how you got a Coke machine? And it said Coke machine, it says Pepsi on it. But
absolutely. Yeah, Kevin, when I first met Kenny, I want to say it was probably, man, I don't even think you were in high school.
No,
were you in high school? And he was doing offensive line drills in the sand over in Treasure Island. And it was at, what's the name of that place? Island Inn. We were at Island Inn. And his dad's over there. We were watching the NCAA basketball at the time. And I see him doing these drills, and I'm just one of those guys that, if I'm a coach and I see some people doing some drills, I'm going to go and critique them or introduce them. And, man, next thing you know, man, the guy's got the code to my house. His amazing sister Caitlin, the queen of the family, man. She came and watched my dogs and everything. And yeah, man, it's just one of those things where you do, sometimes you just gotta, talk to people, and you never know. It could be the person you talk to might end up being one of your best friends in the world. That's kind of how it has been with us, and it sounds like the same with you guys, man. That's just such cool stuff.
Yeah, I tell you what, I mean, there's not a greater man in the world. I mean, you talk about a person that'll take the shirt off his back and not only give it to me, but give it to anybody. I mean, that's just the type of guy that he is. And every time I go to Champaign, or if he's going to be in the area, I mean, we always, like try to hook up. And then we don't always get a chance to do it, but we do stay in contact. And it was like when we met you, when he called and said Kenny was going to be down there in Daytona for the game.
Yeah.
There was definitely no way we were going to miss it. But yeah, he really, just from a chance encounter, living across the street to just kind of becoming one of my best friends in life is, it's pretty special.
No doubt about it.
That is cool stuff.
One of my dad's favorite stories about you, Kev, is actually, I think it might have been your senior year versus Minnesota. You got that interception and you tossed it to D. Lyle.
Yeah.
And so D. Lyle's another one of those guys that became like family to my dad, since I was a kid, obviously, close with D. Lyle. And my dad talks about that stuff all the time. And, some of the greatest years of his life.
Because it was myself, Melvin Roberts, Dwayne Lyle, and Mickey Johnson. And then later on, Tyrone Washington. We were all roommates right there across the street. And so, that's why we all, kind of, got close. But good times.
Heck yeah. You got any stories about my dad? Some at least PG-13 stories?
I'm trying to think. Put me on the spot here. I mean, I can't think of any really, really good ones right off the top of my head right now that I don't want to put him out there. Because it seems like he was the one always, helping take care of me. But I know as soon as we get off, I'm going to think, oh, shoot, I should have.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
He tells the story about, I think it was you, Simeon Rice, and it was an offensive lineman, I think, went to Cincinnati maybe, you guys' draft party.
We had he got Ken Blackman got drafted by Cincinnati, but we had a draft party at Cochran's. Kenny used to hook stuff up because he knew so many people obviously around town. I used to call him the mayor of Champaign, but yeah, he got us hooked up over there at Cochran's to have our draft party. That was a night.
I can only imagine.
Good stuff. As far as the NFL coaches, we didn't really get into Coughlin, or you had Dick Duran as well. Is that correct? Tell me about some of the defensive coordinators that you rode with during that time.
The first coordinator was Dick Duran. He was my coordinator when we first got to Jacksonville, and obviously a good defensive coach. But I tell you, I really flourished under Dom Capers. Dom Capers.
Yeah.
But the blitz scheme that he had and he would put together, that really was really solid for me. Those were my best years under Dom Capers. And then when I was in Dallas, Mike Zimmer. That's another strong.
Wow.
Yeah, he was the coordinator at Dallas. Obviously, went on to be the head coach at Minnesota and had some success. And then in Cincinnati, Leslie Frazier. Obviously, defensive, great, and then that, it was kind of a little bit of oil and water because we had Leslie Frazier as defensive coordinator, but we had Marvin Lewis as the head coach, and he was obviously a great defensive coordinator in his day. So they had some things that were little, had different philosophy on some things. So at times they kind of bumped heads a little bit on a few things, but yeah, I had the benefit of playing for some great coaches throughout my career.
Can you name who you would consider, like, who would be the GOAT that you would consider? Who was the greatest coach that you ever were under, and how come? What made him that way?
Well, the thing about it is that, playing under Tom Coughlin, I think you just have to go there because he led the ship. And, Coughlin was one of those guys that, in the moment you couldn't appreciate it because he was such a hard ass. But in hindsight, it was the best thing, it was the best thing for us. And I say it for myself because it really established that structure early on in my career. And, and I kept that throughout because I'll tell you, when I went to Dallas, we didn't have that type of structure. And obviously Dallas is a storied franchise and stuff. And at the time, we just weren't a good football team, and the discipline and some of the things that were going on just wasn't right. And so, I missed my time in Jacksonville just off of that 1 year in Dallas. But I think that, just the professionalism and then the focus that Coughlin brought to us in Jacksonville, he really stands out as being, the best coach that I ever had.
Man, without a doubt, that 99 season, you guys were the #1 defense in the NFL. And we're talking about a time frame when, you had a team over here, the Tampa Bay Bucks. They were just as loaded at that time. So yeah, man, it's good stuff, man. Appreciate that.
99, you were first team All Pro?
Yeah, 99, first team All Pro and Pro Bowl. And I felt like, the funny thing is the year before I felt like I had an even better year and didn't get that recognition. But proud of that. 99, we did have a really good year, and the thing that I can look back on is we led the NFL in defense, and I like to think that I was a big part of that.
Oh, without a doubt.
No doubt about it.
But yeah, is there anything else that you'd like to, give a shout out? Is there anything you're working on? Whatever you want to plug, Kevin, let us know, man.
Not really. I'm just, I just right now I'm just being dad and coaching my boys. Man. I just can't wait till football season just ended, but I can't wait till football season.
Amen. The champions are built in the off season, and I just want to thank you here. Totem Pole Nation. This is an instant classic right here. This is fire right here, Kevin. Thank you for the opportunity. We're so proud of you too, man. So many kids kind of grow up not having that father figure and can't have somebody, be there to mentor them and, take them to games and take them to clinics and stuff like that. Obviously you had an amazing father that did that for you, or you wouldn't have hired him as your agent.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have a great foundation at home, and that's what I try to provide to my kids today.
But any last words, Kenny and Kevin? Go ahead.
Not much. I just really appreciate the opportunity. It's been great getting to just talk ball with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, how are you?
That's the old man right there in the back. I knew he couldn't be too far away.
No, he just showed up.
Hold on, get him beside you. Get him beside you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I want to hear some stories. Let's go.
PG-13. There probably isn't many of those in our.
My camera's gonna be moving because I got to roll.
All right, gotcha. You got it.
Take
All
care.
right. Hey, guys, thank you, Totem Pole Nation. Give a shout out to our sponsor, the Rat Coach. Let us do all the work. We'll get you jacked for the season. Totem Pole Nation, thank you, guys. Until the next episode.
All right, fellas.